Hey Ryan, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So like, I've watched, I used to struggle with talking on the radio quite a bit, so I've watched a bunch of YouTube videos and all this other stuff. And all these guys that are trying to teach, talking on the radio, they always start your stuff off like talking to caller with a cold call. I've never ever seen that done, ever been taught it in real life, ever. Nobody ever uses it.
The second, that's why the first W is who are you calling? Fargo Tower, Fargo Approach, Fargo Ground, whatever the case may be. Minneapolis Center, that always gets their attention, okay? You can just rattle it on. If you start with a cold call, Minneapolis Center, Archer 8093 Golf. Yeah, so what do you want? What do you want? Nobody does it. I hear some people do it. The more inexperienced people will do it, but it's not anything that you really want to do. I mean, just rattle it off. Because once you give their name and then you say who you are, they're prepared to answer any question that you are about to have without wasting the time on the radio. And like I said, you get to some center frequencies, especially when you're IFR. There was, oh good Lord, last week I was on one frequency. I swear it took me half an hour to talk to somebody. It was that continuous. And this lady controller was, okay, everybody stop talking. There are 4 people trying to call me all at once. Then she shouts out this tail number. What do you need? And then she, and then it was, what was I that day? 700 Charlie Tango. You checking on? Yes, affirmative. Okay, and that's all you need. Okay. My normal check on is usually, as long as it's not too busy, is a greeting. We're going to switch over to November 910 Echo Alpha, which is a TBM 800 or 850. Only because for the IFR stuff, I want to go a little further than just with the Archer. But we're going to get the same idea throughout. There's a reason I wanted to go to the bigger airplane. But it's, Minneapolis Approach, good afternoon, or good evening, or good morning, depending on what time of day it is. I usually always do that. And then our, TBM 910 Echo Alpha checking on 8,000, climbing to 230. Well, let's get into talking about IFR a little bit. Clearances are a little bit different. I know a lot of people use this craft and the acronyms and everything else. I kind of tend to stay, for the most part, away from acronyms. It's not the way my mind works. If you want to use it, there's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. It just depends on how your mind works. But they're always going to give the same thing. So now I'm up at Fargo Jet Center. I'm 910 Echo Alpha. I'm a TBM. I have a flight plan filed, IFR, Fargo to Minneapolis, flight level 270. Okay? That's all we need to know for clearance purposes. You all know what needs to go into an IFR flight plan, or any flight plan with the airspeed and so on and so forth. But all you're going to get for clearances is that and the flight level 270. So my call now is Fargo Ground TBM 910 Echo Alpha North GA, ready to taxi, instruments, Minneapolis. That's all I need to say, and whatever information. We'll stay with information India. We already had that. If you don't tell them you have information India, they will ask you. And about 75% of the time, if you tell them you have information India at the end of your transmission, they will ask you if you have information India. Okay, they forget. Like I said, they're human, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not going to get all excited about it. Affirmative India. Okay. So anyhow, all right, so that's my thing. TBM, Fargo Ground TBM 910 Echo Alpha, North GA, ready to taxi, instruments, Minneapolis. Okay. They know I have a flight plan. They know everything. I don't need to tell them anything else, like we did with the VFR stuff. Okay. So they're going to give me a clearance. What's that clearance?
TBM 910 Echo Alpha, taxi to runway 8. 18. Okay, I'm sorry about that.
We'll use Charlie, so via Charlie.
Okay, via Charlie, yeah.
4,000 feet is the initial altitude they always give out of Fargo.
Okay. Okay, maintain 4,000 feet.
Okay. Yeah, what are we missing though? We got a clearance, right? Cleared as filed? Okay.
Well, you're cleared as filed, yeah.
Okay, but, and this is why I threw Minneapolis in there, because that's not going to work. Not out of Fargo, it's not going to work. If I want to fly to Miami, and I say direct with no arrival, cleared as filed. They're going to give me somewhere in the process, they're going to give me the arrival. Okay? But here, they're going to know. They talk to Minneapolis directly. They're going to know there's no way in the world that you're going to fly there direct at flight level 270.
They're going to give you an arrival.
They're going to give me an arrival. All right. So even if I file it direct, which I don't because I know better, they are going to say cleared via the Gopher 7 or Gopher 7 arrival. Climb, maintain 4,000 feet. Expect flight level 270 in 10 minutes. Departure frequency 120.4 squawk. Let's get an actual squawk code for VFR. 2727. Okay?
IFR.
Yeah, IFR. Thank you. So, all right, taxi runway 18 via Charlie, cleared to Minneapolis via the Gopher 7 arrival. Climb, maintain 4,000 feet, expect 270 in 10 minutes. Departure frequency 120.4 squawk 2727. Okay? That's going to be your clearance. They're giving you your clearance, they're giving you your altitude, your route, if you want to go with your craft, your clearance, your route, your altitude, your frequency, and your transponder. Okay? I never use the transponder, I always say squawk. That's why a lot of the acronyms are like, screw it, I have my different language, so the alphabet doesn't work out, right?
One of the things, the reason they will give you this Gopher 7 is because when they get the flight plan, it will have in red the Gopher 7.
Mm-hmm.
It won't be as filed, so they have to read it to you for what it is.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good point. And that's why you're here, because you see that stuff that we don't. Okay, so we go through all the same stuff. It's takeoff, they assign you a heading, you contact them, departure TBM 910 Echo Alpha with you climbing 1.8 for 4,000, runway heading assigned. Okay, they're going to say, all right, TBM 910 Echo Alpha, and we'll use the full call sign on the first one. Climb, maintain 10,000. Turn left heading 130 degrees, intercept the Gopher 7 arrival. Piece of cake. You have your maps there, you know what it is. We're not going to go through all that. So again, your readback is 10,000, 130 to join, and that's really all you need to do, and then 0 Echo Alpha. Okay, they're just simply, what it looks like is Fargo Airport, Fargo VOR, blasting off runway 18, Alexandria to I can't remember. There's one waypoint, and then there's Ole. And okay, but essentially that's what it looks like. So you're taking off, and then they give you a 130. And all they're telling you is to join this. Join that radial in between Fargo and Alexandria. And then you're going to follow the arrival in. But you should have all your charts there to know exactly what they're talking about. Now, the interesting thing that you find out, and the reason I wanted to use a high altitude airplane on this, you know how the sectors work for the ARTCs, the Air Route Traffic Control Centers. Minneapolis is our one here. Okay? There aren't that many in the country, to be honest with you. The one that
There's 22.
okay, yeah, so out of 50 states. But now the one that always baffles me is every time I go down to the Atlanta area, or I just went down to Charleston.
Okay.
So I go from Minneapolis to Chicago to Indianapolis to all of a sudden I'm on Atlanta, and then they give me Jacksonville, which is south of Atlanta, to go north of Atlanta. I never understand that, but their sectors are all separated, all kinds of weird, okay? They're also separated by altitude, which is why I use the high altitude airplane. Notice, okay, Fargo approach now gave me 10,000 feet. I didn't write it down, now I'm in a very technically advanced aircraft, and I turned my altimeter, or the altitude alerter, to 10,000 feet, great. Now Fargo turns around, that's the top of their Tersa, which is why that's all they're gonna give me. Minneapolis, or Fargo turns around and says, all right, 0 Echo Alpha, contact Minneapolis 126.1. Okay, 126.1, see ya. So Minneapolis Center, or TBM 910 Echo Alpha, climbing 9,000 for 10,000. That rarely happens. What usually happens is TBM 0 Echo Alpha, Fargo departure, climb and maintain flight level 230, contact Minneapolis 126.1. Well, wait a minute. That's not their airspace. Where does Class A airspace start? 18,000 feet, right? Fargo approach has no right giving me that altitude. So why do they do it all the time? That's exactly it. It's the same thing as me standing next to ground being tower, and the ground controller says, hey, can I let this idiot cross runway 27? Yeah, you can. So it's going through. They've already talked to them. They've handed me off, essentially, to Minneapolis, and Minneapolis said, have them go ahead and climb up to 230. Okay? So that's exactly it. They've already talked to us, so they have permission from Minneapolis to give me that altitude. All right, so I keep climbing out. I'm climbing to 230, and I'm passing 21. Okay? Next thing I hear is TBM 910 Echo Alpha, contact Minneapolis 133.5. Right, Minneapolis 33.4, 0 Echo Alpha, see ya. Tune in the radio, listen for a couple of seconds, make sure nobody else is talking on there. Minneapolis Center, TBM 910 Echo Alpha, checking in 210 for 230. Always give the altitude you're at and the altitude you're going to, the altitude that you have assigned. And if you have an assigned heading, use the assigned heading. Tell them that, okay? There are some times, and more often than I can count, where some controllers put you on an assigned heading and never pass it on to the next controller, and they keep on that heading. It's like, when can I be on course? Oh, you aren't on course? Well, you're cleared on course, right? Well, why 230? You're a controller, you know this, so shut up. Why 230? All these weird shaped areas where RCs are controlling, their designated areas, are also split by altitude. 126.1 is low altitude below 230 for Minneapolis Center in this area. When you're heading to Minneapolis, 133.4 is everything above 230. So they're giving the controllers those breaks in those segments that they are controlling. And even like Minneapolis is split up into several segments that different controllers will control. So above 230, they won't clear me above 230. They'll switch me over. And as soon as they switch me over, I'll expect to get 270. So they'll switch me over. TBM 0 Echo Alpha, contact Minneapolis 133.4. 33.4, 0 Echo Alpha, see ya. All right, Minneapolis Center, after the switch, Minneapolis Center, TBM 910 Echo Alpha, 2.2, climbing for 230. TBM 0 Echo Alpha, Minneapolis, climb maintain 270. More often than not, they'll just give you the altitude. Sometimes they have to hold you for traffic. It's not a big deal. But it's really that simple, and that's why they do it, and just an understanding of it helps. One thing that I did, and you'll remember this day, because I was flying to Minot every day.
Yep, I remember that.
9/11, 2001.
You were in the air?
I was in the air.
They shot you down.
They didn't shoot me down. I didn't actually even hear it, because by the time the air route traffic controllers were saying, everybody listen up, nobody talk. Just do what we tell you to do. This airplane, fly here. This airplane, fly there. This airplane, fly. I was already on departure or approach to Bismarck. I got onto approach in Bismarck and I heard something I'd never heard. And I'm sure everybody can relate to sometimes when you see or hear something that you just don't understand. Like watching in 1986, watching the Challenger blow up. I watched it live and I sat there and thought, what did I just see? What just happened? Where's the Challenger? I have no idea. It was really strange to see that, and my mind wouldn't register it. Well, usually the Bismarck was such a quick turn before I left and went to Minot that I never even retuned ATIS, because I had it written down on my pad, just like we did. But for some reason, something said, tune in ATIS again. And what I heard was these words. There is a ground stop for all IFR and VFR traffic. There is a ground stop for all IFR and VFR traffic. Listen to it again. What are they saying? I have no idea what they're saying. And this went on, and I listened to it 5 times. I'm like, well, where's the weather? Yeah. Well, why do you need the weather and NOTAMs if there's a ground stop? And it finally registered in my brain. It clicked like, I'm not going anywhere, am I? So I tuned into ground. I said, what's with the ground stop? Oh, some terrorist attack out east. Wow, that was weird. Well, I ended up...
I was in the tower.
Yeah. Yeah, weird day, huh? Anyhow, when I finally got going, I was talking to flight service that next morning or 3 days later when we could finally start going. And Part 91 could not go, Part 121 could not go. The med flights were allowed to go, the military were allowed to go, but Part 135 was not. Right. And then finally they all opened up for Part 135, then they canceled it. Then they opened it, then they canceled it. And then they opened it, I'm like, I'm getting out of here before they cancel it again. So I jump in the air, and I'm in Minot, or I head into Minot, and we're talking to the controller, and it's dead silent. And I always hate that, because a lot of pilots hate that. They usually, a lot of times you hear the words when a frequency gets quiet is, anybody still out there, or are you still there? Right? You hear that, yeah, we're still here.
You were flying the Metro then.
Yeah, that's right. But anyhow, so it got really quiet, and somebody said something, and then the controller came on. She said, you know what? It's so quiet right now. She goes, I'm holding both altitudes and controlling all of North, South, and North Dakota by myself. And I only have 5 airplanes in the air. And she said, the unusual thing about that is 2 of them started at the same place and their destination is the same place, out of 5 airplanes in all 3 states. So yeah, they will combine segments and put them all together. But no.
That was common because, I was at 3 centers and 5 approach controls. And it's really, really common to combine up sectors.
Yeah.
Especially at night.
Yeah.
Or during times of...
Yeah, when it's slow. And what you often hear is this, when they're combined. Change to my frequency. Mm-hmm. They don't say contact Minneapolis on this frequency. They'll say change to my frequency. Half the time I don't even acknowledge it. I change the frequency. I hit the switch and I say, checking on, our Zero Echo Alpha's made the switch. I know it's the same guy.
Interesting enough, I initiated that clearance.
Oh, really?
It changed to my frequency.
When was that, 1946?
Well,
1903.
I think I was at Salt Lake when that, everybody kept saying, change the frequency, and I said, why don't we just tell them to change to my frequency?
Yeah.
And so I sent it in, and they accepted it.
Yeah. Well, it slows, it alleviates radio communications. Yeah. It clears things up. Because then they already know you, you're already on there, you're on their screen, and it's a matter of, you don't even need to give your full tail number again. It's Zero Echo Alpha made the switch.
Another thing too I could add, with all of the, be sure and use your call sign when you call or at the end of the call or whatever, the controllers, we know your voice.
Right,
exactly. And if you never said your call sign again, I'd know who was calling. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, it's the appropriate way to do it, but that's it.
I mean, some radios squeal when you key the mic, and so you know who it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And know what, when I was up at Minot, Dan Diggesaw and Fred Adams used to fly in, and they'd say, Good morning, Daryl. And you used to do the same thing once in a while.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I knew all of your voices, but
Sure. You lost me when you said change to my frequency.
okay. Here's one of the Minneapolis sectors, okay? Here's another Minneapolis sector out here, however shaped they are. It may be that the same controller is controlling both sectors. And you may go from 121.6 to, let's say, 124.2 coming across. And if the same controller is controlling both sections, instead of saying contact Minneapolis 124.2, he'll just say change to my frequency 124.2. At which point, yeah. And so you know it's the same controller, so you don't have to do the entire check on it. I'll say, all right, 24.2, 0 Echo Alpha, and then make the switch, or I won't even say anything. As soon as I hear my tail number, my hand goes to the radio. So I'm ready to switch it. So I don't write it down. I'm switching it, and I have the first 3 numbers in, and I'm switching the last 2 or 3 officially. I'm switching those in while they're still talking or while I'm repeating the frequency. That way I don't forget it, and then I just read it back right off the radio. All right, 0 Echo Alpha, 124.2. Hit the thing, or say nothing, hit the thing. 0 Echo Alpha's made the switch. That's all you got to say. I don't have to say Minneapolis Center, TBM 910 Echo Alpha checking on flight level 270. Because they already know. We've already been talking to them. That's already been established. Whenever you switch frequencies, if it's a different controller, let's say we're out here going to now 128.75 as you're cutting through. TBM or November, they'll often use November instead of your airplane type, but TBM 910 Echo Alpha, contact Minneapolis 128.75. Or maybe it's even Denver down here or Salt Lake up here, whatever the case may be. All right, over to Denver, or over to Minneapolis 2875, 0 Echo Alpha, yeah. I make the switch, I wait on the radio, make certain nobody's having a conversation, key in when there's a break, Minneapolis Center, TBM 910 Echo Alpha checking on 270. Okay, that's the normal switching as you go through. But
This mainly happen above 18,000?
not necessarily. If you are on an IFR flight plan and you are not with an approach, you are with center. Period. Now, I did a flight coming from Kansas City in a Bonanza here a couple of weeks ago. And ironically enough, I was flying low. They sent me from one approach to the next approach to the next approach. I don't know when I ever talked to center except for past Sioux Falls. From Kansas City, I talked from one approach to the next all the way through.
Oh, just approach control at different.
Yeah, because I was below 10,000 feet and they all control that stuff below 10 grand. So it was all them.
That's kind of common too.
Yeah.
But
And the term for that is tower and route, right?
Yeah, yep, tower and route, yep. So that was, again, only because I was in their airspace. But getting out of here, if I'm going to fly to Bismarck at 6,000 feet, as soon as I get 30 miles out, even though the TERS is 40, 30 miles out, they're going to switch me over to Fargo departure 124.2, or Minneapolis Center, 124.2.
Because there's not towers between.
Right. Yeah, there's nobody there. And I'll talk to 124.2 until I hit 125, I don't remember. I want to say 125.45 or something like that is the next, or 124.25. 125.25. Something like, I don't know, it doesn't matter.
center frequency?
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's a segment about this big before they switch you over to 126.3, which is approach into Bismarck. Anyhow, the last thing I wanted to cover is the last thing I said in getting rid of this class to the break. All right, so here we go. Here's our runway, 36. Here we have the outer marker, Dewey. Something like that, I don't remember. Middle marker's half a mile from the runway. I'm getting vectored out. Okay? They have me out here. Calls are simple. Cessna 733 Tango Papa, turn left heading 180. 733 Tango Papa, turn left heading 090. All right, 090, 3 Tango Papa. Real simple. Simple callbacks, anything that you didn't do anything different during the VFR. Okay? But here's where the confusing thing comes. Now they get serious and they start using your entire tail number again. They don't do 3 Tango Pop. First thing they're going to do is give you a position. Where are you? Cessna 733 Tango Papa, 5 miles from Dewey, which that's normally how they vector you in, is 5 miles away. Okay? Turn left heading 030. Maintain 2,800 until established on the localizer or established on a published portion of the approach, depending on what they're doing. Sometimes they'll say established on the ILS, right? But normally it's until established on the published portion of the approach, because the approaches often give you lower as you go. But that initial altitude is what they're going to give you here, okay? So, position, 5 miles. Heading 030, and it's usually like a 30-degree intercept. All right?
It has to be.
Yeah. Well, so I've actually had them give me less if they're cutting me in too tight.
If they're going to turn it in closer, then they can use 20 degrees.
Yeah, and sometimes when they're on the radio and you're flying towards it and they can't get to you right away, then they're bringing you in a little tight. But other than that, they're doing a 30-degree intercept. Altitude 2.8. And then clearance and runway. Something like that. Okay, so they've told me to turn left heading 030 degrees. That's to intercept the localizer. Maintain 2,800 until established. Well, Dewey, crossing Dewey, the final approach fix, that little Maltese cross thing, where the radiation is, right? That's your final approach fix. That's actually 2,700. But the initial before that is 2,800. That's the lowest you can go. That's your protected area, okay? So maintain 2,800 until established on the ILS or established on a published portion of the approach is what you hear more than anything else. Cleared for the ILS runway 36, okay? ILS 36. So, what are you doing? The whole thing reads, we'll go back to the 8093 Golf. Archer 8093 Golf, turn left heading 030, or 5 miles from Dewey, turn left heading 030. Maintain 2,800 until established on a published portion of the approach, cleared for the ILS runway 36. So what's your readback? That's a lot of verbiage, and you're going, what did they just say? And they rattle it off so fast. And I'm trying to write this stuff down. And like Tom was saying earlier, learn that it's always the same thing. This is information. That is not a command. You don't have to read it back, right? So what did they say? 030 on the heading 2.8 until established, cleared ILS 36. That's my readback. Until established, I don't have to say until established on a published portion of the approach, okay? All I have to do is say 2.8 until established. That says that when I am established, I can follow that chart all the way down. They don't have to give me a different altitude. Okay? And then cleared for what approach? The ILS. Cleared for what runway? I always use the approach and the runway. So again, 030 on the heading, 2.8 until established, cleared ILS, runway 36. And you learn that it's simply 4 things. And it's always heading, altitude, approach, and runway. Every single time. It never changes. And if you can get that in your head, it makes life a lot easier. And if you've briefed yourself on your approach beforehand, then you're 10 steps ahead. Now, some other unusual things, just very briefly about this thing. I'm coming into Fargo, 8093 Golf. I'm all of a sudden out of the clouds. They start giving me what? Position reports. Fargo Airport, 12 miles, 12 o'clock. All right, no joy in the airport, we'll let you know. or airport in sight, or on a clear day, I'm coming in IFR and I see the airport at 30 miles out and I switch over airport in sight. All right, cleared for the visual. Now that I'm cleared for the visual, none of this matters. I can do, unless they give me an altitude, it's like flying VFR. When you're flying VFR, you're coming in, even on a cross country, altitude's your discretion. Even though you filed for something, you're maintaining something, you can start down anytime you need to start down. When you are a VFR on a VFR flight plan, you know, you don't have to ask for a special altitude. You have to maintain an altitude if they assign it to you. Other than that, altitude is your discretion at all times. Now, you are still IFR. Until you say cancel my IFR flight plan, you are still IFR on the visual approach. But the visual approach gives you, unless in the absence of somebody saying maintain this altitude, which they normally do not clear you for the approach coming in on the altitude. If they need you to maintain a certain altitude, they'll expect cleared for the approach at a certain point. Okay? Other than that, they'll give that to you. The only big caveat to that is when you're coming in, you're cleared for the visual, coming into runway 36, and other traffic gets in the way. There might be people doing pattern work here. And then they come back and they'll say, maintain 4,000 feet, whatever the case may be. So be ready for those little differences, but once they've cleared you for the approach, you're cleared to go straight to the runway, set up for your pattern, and altitude is your discretion. Okay, let's finish this. All right, so Archer 809 Golf, 5 miles from Dewey, turn left heading 030, maintain 2,800 until established on a published portion of the approach, cleared for the ILS runway 36. 030, 2.8, cleared for the ILS 36, 903 Golf. That's my readback. Short, simple, to the point. It got everything in. It was complete, but it was incredibly brief. If that's an oxymoron that the government has. And how can you be brief and complete at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Once you're inside the marker, they'll change you to tower.
That's it. You hit this marker right in here. You hear the words, Archer 903 Golf, contact tower 133.8. Tower 133.8, 903 Golf, see ya. So make the switch, and I know what they are already, so I always have them in there, so all I do is hit the button. Usually, in this type of a scenario, it's not so busy that there's all kinds of traffic on there. It's rare, but I still give it a few seconds. I wait. Fargo Tower, Archer 80903 Golf with you, ILS 36. Archer 80903 Golf, continue. That's not a clearance to land. Okay? There might be somebody else taking off. Quite often they'll say traffic is, King Air departing before your arrival, but they're not going to give me a clearance yet. When they're ready to give me a clearance to land, they give me a clearance to land. But you have to hear the words. You are cleared to land, runway 36.
Okay. Or cleared by option.
Well, we're doing real life. We're not doing training. Okay, so we're cleared to land. We're coming down. We get to 200 feet above ground level, AGL, which is 1,100 feet here. All right. Middle marker's going off. I can't see a blessed thing. I can't even see the rabbit. Okay, it's daylight. It's too bright out. And I'm in fog, and it's 100 and went down to a quarter while I was on the approach, and there's nothing there. So it's do your procedures. What do you do? Full power, flaps to approach, gear up if you have that. Get your climb rate established, clean up the flaps, make your call. Fargo Tower, 903 Golf is going missed approach. 903 Golf, fly the published missed approach, whatever the case may be. Or Fargo Tower or 903 Golf, climb maintain 3,000 feet runway heading. They might switch it up. Their normal thing for training here, they give you a separate missed approach procedure, climb maintain 3,000 runway heading. That's just their typical thing. I literally have to ask for the published missed approach if I want to do that here.
But in radar bio, they don't want you shooting above them.
Yeah,
That's correct.
They want you to go where they want you to go.
exactly. But sometimes you want your students to follow the thing. But when it's real life, that's exactly it. They're going to send you wherever they want you. So that's your missed approach. And then, all right, Archer 80903 Golf, maintain runway heading, contact departure. Order departure, 903 Golf. Fargo departure, Archer 80903 Golf with you on the mist. Archer 8093 Golf, what are your intentions? If we're real world, they're going to say, what are your intentions? Well, I want to try and shoot this ILS again. So it's simply, vector me for another ILS. All right, Archer 903 Golf, turn left heading 270. They're going to take me out and do this pattern all over again. Now, word to the wise. New airplanes and poor instrument skills make for bad combination. I was out here building an airplane one day. And I'm looking out, man, it is low out there. It was 125. I called up AWAS just to find out. It wasn't half an hour later. Did you hear there was a Baron that just crashed in a field out by Moorhead? Really? You remember that one?
Yeah.
Here's what happened. This guy had I think he came from a Bonanza, don't quote me on that, but he had his new Baron. He was not very good on his instruments. His son was along, and 2 business associates, I think.
It was a full airplane.
It was a pretty full airplane, and a Baron, you know, Daryl and myself, our flight bags and a can of Coke puts it out of weight with full fuel. So anyhow, one approach into Moorhead at the time, VOR Alpha. All right, brings you down to 1,700 feet, 1698, right, officially?
Correct.
That's pretty darn high off the runway. So 1,700 feet. It's a long ways from the VOR to, what is it, 9 miles?
It's over 9, yeah.
Yeah, it's like 9.1 miles from the VOR to the airport.
It's not high.
And this guy shoots this approach. Bam, comes back to Fargo. Didn't see the airport. What are your intentions? Would like another approach. Wouldn't you rather come into Fargo? These guys can't tell us what to do. They can suggest all they want, but they cannot tell us, you have to do this. No, I don't want to. I'm the pilot. Screw you, right? That's the way it works, really. In fact, one controller even said everything we say is a suggestion, but you know, it's a matter of if you don't follow it, you get yourself into a lot of trouble. Well, anyhow, this guy comes around, shoots the approach again. Well, this time he starts chasing needles. He's not attitude flying, he's chasing needles. And he's getting to the point where he's all over the place. Next thing you know, he's in a graveyard spiral from 1,700 feet, right, to 900 feet. Actually, probably 1,000. So he's probably 700 feet AGL. And he lost it, plants it in a field halfway between the VOR and the airport. Kills himself and everybody on board. Because, no, I have to go into Moorhead. Was he trying to avoid maybe getting a ramp check from the FAA? Was he, even an ILS would have been, he may have made it with the rabbit, catching the rabbit, because what's your rule there? You know, you come down and you hit 200 feet, that's your decision height, right? If you get any part of the airport environment in sight, which includes the rabbit, you can descend another 100 feet.
You can descend 100 feet.
Then, if you get the runway environment in sight, then you can land. So even at a quarter mile, he probably could have made it had he been right on the money. But again, it's all being safe. It's being well trained, knowing what you're doing, and being safe. And that's right down to the radio communications, because with the radio communications, if you know what you're doing, if you listen to them, go to liveatc.net and listen to Approach. Listen to Minneapolis Approach. Listen to Minneapolis Center. Go through and do all these different frequencies. You can get to that. Like I said, I have a hyperlink right on my website. You go to my website there, bam, it's right there on the flight instruction page. You can listen to dang near anywhere in the country that you want and sit and listen and learn this stuff. The more natural things are for you, the more you can focus on flying the airplane. That's your number one job, is to fly the airplane. In a matter of an emergency, what do? I fly the airplane. Before I do anything else, I'm going to fly the airplane.